Jen Mall, and welcome to Nurse Connect. I am an RN and a board certified nurse coach. I believe that connecting with others is essential to living a happy and fulfilled life, and that sharing our stories not only helps us to heal ourselves, but also helps others by inspiring hope and optimism. I am so grateful to share stories of these incredible nurses on their journey, and I encourage you to find a way to share yours too. Thanks for listening in. Hey, everybody, welcome back. I'm Jen Mall with Nurse Connect Podcast, and I've got Amanda with me here today. Super happy to have you, Amanda. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I would love for you to just start by kicking us off, telling us how did you get into nursing? Kind of what has your path been, and what are you doing now?
Okay. Well, interestingly, I started college not knowing quite exactly what I wanted to do, but I had a love for science. I was super interested in biology and chemistry and decided to be a double major in biology and chemistry.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I loved it for a little while until we got to sophomore year. We were taking calculus and physics and organic chemistry and all of this like really tough classes.
Yeah.
And I was struggling hard. And so there was a period of time in college where I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Do I want to be a respiratory therapist? Do I want
Mm.
to do something else altogether? Maybe science isn't my jam. And my aunt is a registered nurse. And so
Mm.
she's like, try nursing. I was like, no, maybe not. Like there's broken bones and blood and things that are just not into, what I'm into. And so she's like, it's really not that bad. I work in the ER, like it's not terrible. So I was like, all right. So I signed up for for nursing courses. And honestly, I fell in love pretty quickly.
Mm.
I was a big fan of Florence Nightingale and all of the things that she really said make up healthcare. And so I was hooked pretty quickly after that and continued to take my nursing courses, graduated soon after graduation because I graduated during the recession. It was
Mm.
so hard to find jobs. And
Yeah.
so I took what I could, first it was PRN, and I ended up working in some nursing homes. I worked in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Alzheimer's and dementia units, which wasn't really my preference, but I did actually find like a really nice place and grew to love it. So I continued to do that, but I wasn't quite satisfied. I was watching a lot of management and
Mm.
like how administration was really running some of these long-term cares, and I wasn't a huge fan of it. And I was like, I'm going to work in management. I'm going to make a difference and change it all.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up going back to school, and I enrolled in a dual master's program. So
Mm.
I got an MBA and I have my MSN.
Wow.
And I started working in leadership pretty soon afterwards, doing a lot of staff education. I did staff development at first, a lot of teaching, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
helping organizations really fix the problems that they were having, turnover, helping to develop programs within,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up then kind of moving more into a wellness director role in assisted living
Mm.
facility for 6 years, where I worked so many hours.
Yeah.
Really felt like I was sacrificing myself, sacrificing. At that point, I had a young child, and so
Mm.
I just really was putting everyone else's needs before my own, which was really tough. And so since then, I've been working more in a 9 to 5 role. I worked in a nonprofit, which is a little bit more flexible and family friendly, which has been
Good.
nice. And then I was running another program afterwards. And so that was tough because I was doing that during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
a Medicaid program. And so that was really challenging, trying to not only manage and supervise a team, but to help my, at the time, kindergartner do online schooling through COVID,
Yeah. Oh my
and
goodness.
just having all these, you know, tasks and things that had to be done, making sure that our clients were getting what they needed, making sure my
Mm-hmm.
staff were getting what they needed, make sure my son was getting what he needed. all the while not really making sure that I was getting what I needed.
Yeah.
So it's really tough. And so it kind of led to, I want to say like a year and a half ago, I had really started to be, irritable and tired, and I
Hmm.
couldn't get out of bed in the morning. Everything was just so exhausting. I was sick all the time. I was having pain, and I just felt terrible. And so
Mm.
I wasn't really sure what was going on, but many trips to the doctors,
Yeah.
and they're just like, you're fine, everything's fine, your tests are fine. Eventually it got to a point where I just was not fine. And
Mm.
so things were not going well. So much in the workplace. I mean, outwardly I was performing and everything was
Sure.
great. But inwardly, I just felt like a wreck. I would close my door to my office sometimes and I would just burst in tears. I would be angry. It was just not a good environment. I wasn't serving myself. I couldn't really serve our clients. I couldn't really be present or serving my staff,
Mm.
and it was hard. Eventually I went for my physical and my doctor was like, you have burnout. Like this,
Mm.
you are experiencing this and it is real. And I think that was the cause of a lot of the physical symptoms that were
Yeah.
happening. And I did end up taking a leave of absence from work.
Mm. Good for
I
you.
was gone for a few months because I felt like I came to a point where I didn't have any other options but to take a leave of absence. I was barely functioning and
Hmm.
it was hard. So after that leave of absence, I did return to the workplace, but ended up leaving a few months later. When I came back, I felt really almost a lot of shame.
Mm.
I feel like we're always, society really encourages us to always be productive. And if we're not productive and we're not producing, we're not valuable.
Hmm.
And it was really hard for me to work through a lot of that. And so I did leave soon after. I took a part-time position elsewhere in a hospital, which ended up being not great.
Mm.
Anyone who works there, I highly respect you. The
Yeah.
political piece of it is
Yeah.
really tough. So um, I completely understand what people are going through and
Yeah.
can say that it's hard. So I ended up going back to the place that I worked at before I left for burnout in
Hmm.
a part-time role, and
Mm.
they did welcome me back with open arms, but I took a different position,
Yeah.
uh, which was hard for me, I think, to really come to terms with it on my own. I don't think anyone else felt weird about it. Maybe they did, but to me, it was just more of, almost putting my tail between my legs and
Sure.
kind of being like, okay, wave the white flag. Like I I'm gonna step down and kind of do something that is more fitting for my life.
Oh, good.
A long, interesting journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So take me back to when you were going out on your LOA, and what helped you during that time frame to kind of start figuring out what did you need and how did you do that and what worked well for you and what didn't?
Yeah, so I mean, first and foremost, I was seeing a therapist, but I also had a
Good.
coach at the time, which
Mm.
both were really, I think, super supportive and really helping me to go internal and figure out what it is that I needed. There was a lot of kind of just sitting with the feelings, not avoiding it, and really listening to my intuition. Like, what is it that you need right now?
Mhm.
And it wasn't easy because that's not something that I was really necessarily taught to do or encouraged to do. I think most of the time we always are encouraged to think with our brain, whereas I really needed to kind of like look inward and be like, what is my heart saying?
Yeah.
Um, and so my therapist was super supportive, helped me to work through some of that, and my coach was super supportive. We spent a lot of time kind of going into like, what does your dream life look like? How
Mhm.
can we make that happen? And is this role that you're in really supporting that bigger dream? And I had to be honest with myself. I think for a long time I was kind of telling myself these lies, I guess, saying
Mhm.
it's okay, I don't need help, everything's fine, when really in reality, um, I wasn't fine. I wasn't
Mhm.
fine at all. And it was hard to admit that.
Mhm.
a lot of the times we end up just kind of swallowing those emotions and feelings and put that, that mask on and just say, we're okay, we're going to get up another day and we're going to do this. And that just wasn't the case. I could not hide behind the mask anymore.
Yeah. And I love that you had both a therapist and a coach, because I do feel there's value in both roles. And I love when people go, well, what is the difference? Like, so can you share your kind of perspective on the differences between therapy and coaching?
Yeah, so the therapist for me was really kind of diving into some of the things in the past that kind of led to what was going on in my
Hmm.
current state. She also was really supportive in giving me a lot of resources to help cope
Hmm.
with things. A lot of, we talked a lot about Brene Brown and vulnerability.
Her.
Yeah, and a lot of those other resources. At the time, also, I was having panic attacks with going to the grocery
Mm.
store, which seemingly is unrelated, but I like couldn't leave my house almost because I was having
Oh.
such anxiety about it, and it was very similar to what I was experiencing in the workplace. And so
Mm.
we did work through that a lot and some coping strategies, and we were doing a lot of the mental health components,
Hmm.
whereas my coach was really more forward thinking and what do I want
Yeah.
my future to look like, and really empowering me to design that future and coming up with current things that I could do to work towards that, really a,
Yes.
a plan. So there was a lot of future planning, and then there was, kind of working through how did I get to where I am now. And really, they worked fabulously together.
Hmm.
They both were very different in personalities, but they had the same outlook. And so when I would say, oh, my coach said, the therapist absolutely was like, yes, listen to her.
Good.
It was awesome. They didn't know each other, but it was really helpful to have both pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I imagine they both also probably helped when you went back to that previous position or previous company, right? Different position, because now you are a different person, but you're going back to somewhere that sees you as that original person who probably worked a ton of overtime and didn't have great boundaries and was given everything to everybody. So how did they help you, or what really worked for you when you went back to that company? How were you able to be your new person there?
So I think you hit the nail on the head when you said boundaries. Looking back, I always thought I was pretty good about having boundaries. In reality, I don't think I really knew what a boundary was,
Yeah.
or how to hold them. Making sure learning how to say no was a big one for me.
Yes.
Uh, Knowing that I didn't have to agree to every single thing that was asked of me. I'm not saying, you should say no to your boss and not do these things, but if it's not a required or there's an option to it and it just doesn't feel right for you, or you aren't in a place to be able to do that, being able to say no and being okay with that, not feeling
Hmm.
guilty. Um, in the past, I've had a lot of guilt associated with saying no. Um, Especially with being a leader of a team at the time, I always felt like my team was reliant on me for everything. And I learned quickly, I have to also be able to share a lot of that knowledge and things with other people on the team so they're not reliant on me.
Yeah.
Having that information, not that I was withholding per se, but there are some things that I feel like the leader can only do, and it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
Everyone on the team has important roles, and we should all be able to cover for one another when um, you're on vacation, or you have a day off, or you're out for a medical reason. And so I always felt like I couldn't take the time away.
Mm.
So setting those boundaries to be like, here's what you do for these situations, there hopefully nothing urgent will happen that requires you to call me. Not checking email during time
Yes.
off, not taking the phone calls. They could leave a message and you could screen the message. And if it really is urgent, you could call back. But
Yeah.
not, it can wait, just setting those boundaries, not just with them, but for myself, to
Hmm.
not work on off times. I remember many a times, taking a laptop, during time away because maybe something will come up and I need to have access to it. And it was just not healthy, checking
Yes.
emails at 2 o'clock in the morning because I can't sleep. So I might as well see if someone sent something and respond. And it just became almost obsessive where I just was
Yes.
thinking about it and sleeping and thinking about it and dreaming about it. And it was just so it became this like toxic cycle and I just
Mhm.
couldn't stop it.
Yeah. Oh, I feel that so deeply.
It's
I'm
hard.
definitely there, that same place. And it is, it's such a struggle to finally acknowledge that and like have no idea what to do about it, but just taking these small little steps. And then finally you can kind of look back and go, whoa, that was a rough place to be in.
Yeah, and I think I've been so used to being like that for most of my life where I was just on
Mm,
the go constantly, always doing one thing or another, always getting a
mhm.
new, some kind of certification or
Yes.
degree or, working on some project in the workplace or just always being a busybody where I didn't fully know how to ever stop. And when I did stop, I felt bad about stopping. Who can relate to sitting on the couch and you're trying to watch TV, but you've never even seen what was in front of you because your brain was going a million miles an hour about your to-do list and you got to get the kids ready for this or what's for dinner or I need to do the laundry. And then you finally psych yourself out of sitting there because you're like, oh, I have so many things to do. Let me get up and just do them. And
Yeah.
so you're just on the go, and it just leads to this awful cycle where you're not really resting, you're not meeting any of your internal needs or desires. You've kind of lost touch with what is joyful for yourself. You don't even
Hmm.
know yourself anymore because you've basically based your whole life on these tasks and doing other people's what they think you should be doing or want you to do that you don't even know yourself anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really hard. And it this last couple of years have been a lot of undoing of all of those habits that I created of helping others and going on my way and doing what I thought they wanted me to do. They probably didn't even care. But I have to be so intentional. And I'm curious if this is the same for you of like when I'm resting, I have to like tell myself it's okay. It's okay that I am taking this time for myself, that I don't have to feel guilty about it. That's something I really struggle with still.
That was definitely a struggle when I was really when I was on my leave of absence. It was really hard for me to rest and I was so tired all the time, like couldn't get off the couch tired for
Mm,
probably the entirety of my leave of absence,
wow.
where all I wanted to do was rest and sleep. And sometimes there was reading or other things involved, but I mean, I was just exhausted. And now I
Mm,
find it a lot easier where I don't really don't feel guilty about it anymore.
good.
Where I'm like, no, I need this. This is part of my self-care routine. And
Good.
whether or not anyone else thinks I'm being lazy, I don't care because I know that I work my butt off and I know that I contribute and me sitting here doesn't make me any less valuable. And I have to repeat these things to me
Yes.
um, to just really tell myself like it is okay. So maybe, I still have to go through that, but I don't feel as guilty about it as I once did.
Yeah. Oh, some good tangible tips there because I think that same thing. I use a lot of those similar words and less I feel like I shouldn't. It's okay. Like I don't need to think that I shouldn't be doing it. And I think as we talk about it more in our societal stuff on Facebook and with our friends and here, we kind of give others permission to do that too, because they can see that, hey, look, they really struggle with this. This is what they're doing. Let me see if I can try this and let go of some of those unrealistic expectations that we have for ourselves.
Yeah, and I find it super helpful too to have a supportive partner. And I know that's not the case for everyone,
Mhm.
but I am truly blessed to have a partner that's supportive of that, who
Mm,
also knows that it's necessary. I'm lucky that he never feels guilty for resting. And so he's like,
right?
guilty. Why should you feel guilty? Like, rest. That's what you need, then do it. And so it's really been instrumental in also me helping to take that time for myself and not feel guilty about it. And so I definitely would encourage someone else to, have that conversation with their partner about
Hmm.
what that looks like, and really try to change the dialogue around the societal expectation about just being busy all the time, because it's not just the nursing industry, it is
No.
society at large. I think this can be relatable in any industry, where we're just always, everything's just based on production. And
Yeah.
again, I see it a lot. I work with elders in my day job, and so a lot of it too, they feel
Mm.
this, they feel like they're not valuable because they're not producing work. And, it shouldn't be any different for them and it shouldn't be any different for us either.
Yeah. Oh,
We're
so
valuable
good.
because we are.
Yeah, exactly. And I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in our own heads thinking those thoughts when other people really aren't.
Yeah. The narrative that our brain tells us, the lies that we tell ourselves, are really hard to reprogram and really hard to change that dialogue in our own head. And I've spent a lot of time working through that as well, trying to change, how I think of rest and how I think of value. Um, and it's not easy work. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. It takes a conscious decision every single day, a choice to, prioritize rest and self-care, and to just continue telling yourself those things
Hmm.
until you truly believe it.
Beautiful. And so I know you help others with this work. Tell me a little bit about your coaching.
Yeah, so right now I am working with women who are either leaders or ambitious women, could be moms because I'm a mom myself, who are dealing with burnout and who are feeling that irritability, that exhaustion, that stress, having difficulty prioritizing themselves. I work with them on changing their mindset and putting self-care practices into place. And that looks so much different for everyone.
Hmm.
Self-care is not just taking bubble baths and getting your nails done, although it could be. I
Nice too.
definitely, yeah, like it sometimes, but sometimes it's, going to sound healing or going to
Hmm.
yoga or trying to fit in a fitness routine or eating healthier meals. And so whatever that looks like, for the client, I'm happy to help support that, and help to come up with things that will help make them feel better and not have to go through what I went through,
Hmm.
because it is awful. It really is not something that I would want anyone to have to go through. And so trying to prevent that, trying to set boundaries early, take that rest now, is really what I'm trying to promote, just overall health and wellness, um, for busy working women, because it's not
Yeah,
easy.
it's not. And I think now more than ever, I think especially through COVID, I think it's interesting because I think we got a glimpse early on for a lot of people of not having anything to do. And oh my gosh, like how do I even just rest? I can't literally go out. What am I supposed to do? I don't have any hobbies. I don't, I don't know what to do. And then we now are back to full steam ahead, trying to make up for almost feels like lost time a little bit. But I noticed a lot of people, it's also been a little bit of an awakening or like I don't want to, I don't really want to go back to the way things were before. I don't really want to be stressed all the time and not have hobbies and taking care of myself and my family. So it is this interesting dynamic of a lot of women now just finally going, okay, I'm ready to do something different.
Yeah, I actually was just having a conversation about that yesterday, that, I think COVID was an awakening, like you said. And so, more how the conversation started was just how, a lot of employers say, well, there's no employees, nobody wants to work anymore. Where
Mm,
I don't think that's the case. People do want to work, but they want to work on their own schedules. They want to have the freedom to spend time with their families. They don't want to keep sacrificing the things that are truly important to them. They want to be able to care for themselves, have that balance, to be able to still do work, but have some flexibility with it.
Yeah.
You want to go out biking or hiking or, go to the art class or the yoga class. You want to have the flexibility to do those things and
Hmm.
also be able to do your work just on
Hmm.
a different schedule. And so
Yeah.
people with all the mortality that came with COVID, I think people really have found how delicate the human
Hmm.
experience really is and how much they really value their loved ones and friends, and they aren't sacrificing those things anymore. And I
Yeah.
think, looking back as being a leader, sometimes we've been in tough positions to say, no, you can't have that time off, or no, that doctor's appointment isn't at a good time. Could you reschedule, or whatever the case is? And,
Hmm.
I think society needs to really change the norms when it comes to that and prioritize health and well-being, prioritize things that we're passionate about, that give us joy, and be a little bit more flexible with schedules for employees, so they can have that work-life balance. Because
Hmm.
it really is the essence of what brings us a lot of happiness and joy. And if you're not doing those things, then it really can make life miserable really
Right.
fast. Have that
Right.
resentment, and you're holding all that tension and anger, and the employees are just not, they're not healthy, they're not happy, and it's just not, it's going to lead to burnout, and they're going,
Hmm.
and so that's just, it's a disaster for everyone.
For sure. Oh, I love what you added to that because yeah, I think you're right. I think that the mortality piece of like what is life worth living. I mean, most of us know somebody that was seriously sick or died during COVID, and so it impacted everybody in some way. And so it's, yeah, definitely, as reflecting back, I'm thinking, well, I don't want to go back to the way it was before, because what was that life worth living if you can't spend that time with your loved one, you can't enjoy things, and is why would you want to come to a job and work yourself to death? And so I think a lot of us have really made that shift, and I do feel some employers are starting to have some more flexibility. I think we had to in the beginning of COVID, certainly. And I think it demonstrated that we certainly can actually still be productive. And if we're taking good care of ourselves as humans and we're happier as humans in general, we're going to be much better employees.
100%. Yeah. And I think, before COVID, we were almost living to work, and
Hmm.
just not why were we living to work? Because that's what
Hmm.
our, generations before us did, because
Yes.
that's what they had to do. And it
Yes.
doesn't have to be like that anymore. And so
Mm.
I think, having these conversations, we really are switching what that looks like and really helping to make that shift for people.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that employers are being somewhat more flexible, but I know there's still a long way to go when it
Mm.
comes to that.
Yeah.
Especially being a working parent, whether you're a mom or dad, it's really, really tough to try to balance all the things.
It is. It is. And I think especially as working moms, I mean, I think that, gosh, mothers in general, I can't even actually imagine being a stay-at-home mom. I just don't. I did it for a short period during COVID, and I was like, I wasn't meant to do this. I love my kid. But I think because my experience is mostly as a working mom, trying to be all the things for everybody else is impossible. And I didn't take care of myself, similar to you. And I paid a really heavy price for that. And so it's a passion of mine as well to try and help women in this space to really find there's never a true balance. I'm sure you've encountered this too, right? So things ebb and flow, but to be a little bit more flexible, a little bit more kind to yourself, trying to find ways of pockets of time to help care for your own self so that you can give more to others too. So important.
Yeah, and that's, going back to boundaries, setting boundaries with your time is a huge one.
Hmm.
And I know sometimes people see it as being inflexible, like, oh, why can't you do this at this time? Well, that's my time to exercise. And yes, you do have to be
Hmm.
flexible, but you need to know what you're willing to sacrifice as well. What is okay to cut into that time, and
Right.
what maybe isn't, that you need to set boundaries for, because otherwise, you are really kind of getting this minute here, maybe the minute you get into the car, or the minute before you get out of the car, or a couple minutes in the bathroom, or whatever it is. But sometimes you need to make actual time for yourself. And, I find it helpful to block it on the calendar if you need to get to that extreme. If you're like me, who relied on my Google Calendar for everything because I was in so many meetings all the time, I would
Yeah.
schedule in time for myself on there too and hold myself to it like it was an actual meeting, a meeting with myself.
Good.
Um, so
I love that.
that was helpful.
Yeah. Good. All right. So, in our final minutes, I would love to know if you have any last little tidbits, any words of encouragement, any wish I would have done differently thoughts for our friends that are listening in today.
Hmm. Well, I definitely will go back on the sentiment of giving yourself grace.
Mm,
I've definitely been someone who's been struggling with perfectionism over time and being an overachiever and trying to make sure everything is just so perfect. And that's just not the case.
yeah.
Sometimes you have to be okay with it's good enough.
Yeah.
Um, and you need to be able to kind of just be like, well, it's okay, go with the flow. Um, I think sometimes holding yourself to these really unrealistic high standards can really set yourself up for failure and also
Hmm.
contribute to burnout because you're just, you're working yourself to try to reach something that's just not real. And you don't give yourself rest physically or mentally. So,
Right.
um, give yourself grace. If you are going through burnout, give yourself time to rest. If you're exhausted, there's nothing wrong with you. That's part of it. And just take care of yourself. That's as simple as drinking water, getting some movement. Give yourself time and, just it will be okay. You will make it through the darkness. Just continue to make those
Mm,
conscious choices every day to care for yourself in whatever way that looks like.
I love that. Thank you so much, Amanda. It's been so lovely chatting with you today. Thanks for everything.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody.